if they can get that message out, do you want people who try to enforce the law, or do you want a party that tries to destroy it? Because that's what the Democratic Party is doing. Any law they don't like, they think it's moral not to ignore it. Will Gavin Newsom address this? No. All he's going to do is tweet about Trump and hire these little techie somethings to mimic the Trump tweets. And he doesn't give a blank about the Pacific Palisades disaster that's not being rebuilt. He doesn't care about the trucking crisis. He doesn't care about the crime crisis. He just tweeted about the shooting. We'll get to the trans shooter. And he said, this is the Republicans in gun control. And I'll have something more to say about that. But Gavin, that's not the issue. The issue is there's a lot of deranged people, and we should take a hard look. It's like the emperor has no clothes. DEI, DEI, DEI. Oh, it's okay to judge, hire, retain, admit people by the color of their skin and their gender. That's okay. We can ignore the Supreme Court. We can ignore, a whole corpus of civil rights. That's just who we are. It's very funny that these DEI dinosaurs are all now really angry about refashioning and redistributing congressional seats, because now that they've started this war, they're discovering two things. Number one, that they have redistricted the Republicans nationwide by about 20 seats. In other words, they're overrepresented by congressional seats vis-a-vis the popular votes in their state. And number two, there's a lot of red states that are underrepresented, and they have supermajorities in the legislatures, and they're going to redistrict. And you know who's going to be, they're going to target? The Democrats are going to target all of these conservative congressmen. So in California, we only have 9 out of 52 seats, and they're going to go after those 9, and they're going to say, you know what? We're going to put these 2 Republican districts, we're going to get all the Democrats out, so we can make another. But we're going to put the two Republican incumbents in one district, so they'll have to kill each other off, and then the Democrats are going to suffer the same fate, but it's going to be different. They have redistricted according to race, and they have safe black seats and safe Hispanic seats. And if these states just say, you know what, from now on, we're going to have 750,000 people in every district, and we're going to try to make them proximate, so people don't have to drive, they're not 300 miles away from another voter in their district. And we don't really care what people's race is. We're racially blind. So that would really prune the black caucus, and that's really what they're angry about. They keep talking about Al Sharpton. They wheel out this dinosaur, Al Sharpton, and say, well, it's against the black caucus. Well, yeah, because these districts were racially obsessed and fixated, and they were drawn up to ensure a person of a particular race would win. And the irony of it is the worst thing for black representation, because when you make these jigsaw puzzle shaped districts just so blacks or Hispanics can get elected in great numbers, then they get radical and more radical. So you get Al Green or Maxine Waters, and what you do is you destroy the whole generation's acceptable statewide candidates. So then you look at the Senate, which can't be redistricted, and you can't get a black senator elected because they come out of the Congress and they're so radical, and they're so used to talking about reparations and racism and no cash bail. Then they get statewide, where blacks are 10 or 12% of the population, not 70% of their district, and they have this record that sounds racist to everybody. So the best thing in the world would be just to district on geography or represent the basic rough popular vote in each state. If you got 70% for Democrats, you should have districts that represent 70%. And then if you don't have black districts, then you would have people who were not obsessed with skin color, and you would have blacks winning in districts that didn't have majorities of blacks. And then they would be adept politicians at appealing to everybody. And that's, who learned that was Barack Obama. He ran in a black congressional district against an ex-Black Panther, and he got killed because he couldn't out-radical him. And then he said to himself, that's not who I am. That leads nowhere. You tell me a black caucus member in the House that ever became a senator, maybe one or two. You can't do it. It's impossible. But I can do it by appealing to elite, boutique, white Karens and liberals. And I will go after them, and I will talk about integration, assimilation, we're all one. Yes, remember it's 2004. We're not a red state, America. We're not a blue state. We're not a Republican. We're just America. He didn't believe that, but it sounded great, and that's what got him elected. Had he won that seat and been a member of the Black Caucus, he would have never been elected senator. Obama was the par excellence. Remember, he went to, I think it was Philadelphia, and he said, you got to get in their faces. That was Obama started that. People forget that he was a very divisive, incendiary candidate in 2008. But the strange thing is, there's two strange things about it. They get these people like Tim Walz that, to be frank, and I don't want to be too personal ad hominem, but he looks like a roly-poly buffoon. He wears these tight suits that come up to his knee and to his elbow, and then he waves around like he's on Adderall or something, and he can't control himself. And then he never offers an alternate agenda. He never says, and Donald Trump is not, he's got people who are illegal and he kicked them off Medicaid and we're going to put them on, here's how we're going to pay for it. And we don't need a wall, we can do this. He never does that. He starts attacking the Trump voter, half the country. When he said, well, they get on these MAGA hats, and then so he's just a buffoon, and he acts like a buffoon, and he's not going to be a candidate. I don't even know why he has any national profile at all. He ran one of the worst. Remember how he was introduced to America? He came out on that stage and he started pointing to everybody and went like this, and you couldn't stop him. He was like Rodney Dangerfield in Caddyshack. Remember him? He was just... And so that was one thing. They're the ones that try to get people off the ballot. They're the ones that raid people's homes. They're the ones that go through a former First Lady's underwear drawer. They're the ones that have 93 indictments. They're the ones that have done all of this. They're the ones that impeached somebody twice, try him as a private citizen. If you look at the people on January 6th, the 1,600 that were given pretty tough sentences, some of them just walked around and went out of the rotunda. And you compare the 14,000 people who were arrested in 2020 over 5 months of arson, vandalism, assault, murder. There was not 1,600 that were put into prison. They play hardball. The other thing that's really funny is they're the most unimpressive group of people you see. So when they start doing this braggadocio and this hyper testosterone, and you look at this Martin guy, or you look at Tim Walz, or you look at Mamdani bench pressing, and you think these people don't scare anybody. I don't think that Tim Walz scares anybody. I'm sorry. I don't think Elizabeth Warren screaming and yelling, even Cory Booker, upper middle class kid that lived in a posh neighborhood and got everything he wanted at Stanford, big guy, when he starts screaming and yelling what he's going to do to people. Or Joe Biden said, I wish I could take Donald Trump. When I was younger, I took him behind the gym and beat him up. Oh, I took a guy made fun of my sister and I took his head and slammed it on the thing. Remember that corn pop? I went down to the basement and cut off 6 foot of chain. And then I went out and said, corn pot, you ain't going nowhere. I knew a lot of people who, I grew up as a Democrat, and that was not the Democrats. They were the working class. These people are not the working class, and they're acting tough because they're not tough. And anybody starts talking about beating somebody up or doing this or doing that, they lost 25% of the black male. They lost 57% of the white male vote. So nobody will. I mean, for me, Tim Walz is the epitome or the emblem of what's wrong with that party. He has no talent. He's a chronic liar. And he made up his entire CV. He lied about his China trips. His wife is totally unhinged and says she rolled down the window so she could smell burning rubber. The daughter tipped off. It's a dysfunctional family, and he's just not an empathetic character. When he debated J.D. Vance, he was so outclassed, and then he kind of fell down on the ground almost. Please, I'm nice, I'm stupid, and I can't debate, but I mean well. And then J.D. basically said to him, and we probably agree with it. He had his boot on his neck, and he didn't step it down. That was very sportsmanlike of J.D. But I don't know why they let him talk is what I'm trying to search for, because there's nothing redeeming about him. And the donors, I think the Republican Party has in their coffers 80 million and the Democrats have like 10. I'm not saying the big donors won't come out of the woodwork in the midterms, but the question is always, what's the alternative? Bernie Sanders, they got rid of him in 2020. She didn't get one delegate.
My understanding was
Cory
they
Booker,
could have...
he ran for president.
Yeah.
You want Spartacus filibustering? Poor old Joe Manchin, he thought, you know what, they need a moderate Bill Clinton, and I'm the guy. So I'm going to hit the talk shows for... I just heard Joe's, and that lasted about 2 hours. And they said, no, we're not the party of democracy. We're the party of the back room. Get out of there, Joe. We just anointed a woman who ran for president and didn't get a single delegate. She's going to be your nominee. Because all the left is saying right now is, well, he doesn't go into red states. And they say Memphis and Baton Rouge and all of these southern, Mobile, they have high crime. Yes, Houston, but they're all run by, Democrats. And they're not the 3 or 4 biggest cities like New York and Washington and Los Angeles and Chicago. So they're already getting a narrative against it. I would kind of just call their bluff and say, you know what, I want to go into Chicago and I'm here anytime, Mayor and Governor. Here's my phone number. You can call my private cell and I'll send them in right away. But I'm not going to go in there when I'm not welcome. And I'm sorry, you people of the inner city, I wanted to help you. But it would be too traumatic and divisive. And you can't put federal troops in when the city host is opposed to you. It won't work. And so until something happens, you guys are going to have to elect a new mayor.